David and I promised to study hard, get into good universities, and then be together. That was until he chose the rich heiress, Stephanie Miller, for wealth. That day, Stephanie got out of a Bentley with him, looking down at me condescendingly. "Humph, poor," she sneered. He gave me a deep look and said, "Forget about me." 10 years later, I returned to Riverwood, already a rising star in the business world. Coincidentally, a class reunion was held at my private club, and I saw him again. 1. Obsidian Lounge was a property I acquired when I returned to Riverwood. I needed such a high-end venue to entertain the city's elite. So I didn't count on Obsidian Lounge making a profit. Its sole purpose was curation. Only those with a net worth over $100 million, or with significant social standing, could gain entry. Today's guest was particularly important, Mayor Thompson, who oversees Riverwood's economy. He doesn't drink alcohol, only tea, and not expensive tea at that. After just a few words of casual conversation, we'd already finalized a multi-billion-dollar project. He took a call from the city office, and I stepped out of the suite to give him privacy. Just then, my executive assistant arrived. He was tall, handsome, and had an extraordinary presence. "Ms. Johnson, a real estate heir has arrived downstairs in the Crimson Suite. Would you like to see them?" James Lockwood asked with a smile. I glanced back at the suite where Mayor Thompson was, hesitated for a moment, and said, "Let's go take a look." After all, Mayor Thompson's calls usually lasted at least half an hour, and I couldn't just wait outside the whole time. As a businesswoman, it was only natural to connect with leaders from various industries. Anyone important enough for James to notify me about was certainly worth meeting. I went downstairs to the Crimson Suite, carrying a decent bottle of wine, and knocked on the door. "Come in," someone called from inside. I opened the door and stepped in, offer ing a polite but distant smile. But before I could speak, I froze. I saw familiar faces, a group of people I knew well, yet who now felt like strangers. The seat directly opposite the door was naturally the main one. And sitting there was the most significant person in the room, Stephanie Miller. 10 years had passed, but I could still recall the moment I was terrified into paralysis by her Bentley, and I remembered those 3 words, "Humph, poor." Then, I saw him too, David. The man who once said my affection was worthless was now sitting next to Stephanie, holding a little girl as delicate as carved jade in his arms. 5 years ago, I had seen David in New York City. At the time, he was discussing business and being forced to drink. He refused and was slapped. I helped him out, and he said he wanted a drink. Drunkenly, he told me he could drink himself into a stupor, but he wouldn't be forced into one by others. He said it was about dignity, about his bottom line. But he had clearly said he didn't want to be loved for nothing. He wanted to be played with, showered in silks and riches. How could 5 years pass and he suddenly demand dignity? Then I asked him how much his bottom line was worth, and I'd buy it. He cried, but fiercely wiped away his tears, then said it wasn't for sale, he'd give it to me for free. I told him, if you dare give it, I dare take it. That night, I took him back to my place, but when I woke up, he was gone. I thought about looking for him, even considered the spineless act of trying to win him back. But in the end, I gave up. Later, I left New York City, assuming he was still developing his career there, only to find he had also returned to Riverwood. "Daddy, Lily wants to eat shrimp," the little girl, delicate as carved jade, suddenly said. And, he was married? So, was he married to Stephanie Miller? Stephanie suddenly said, "Come on, Lily, Mommy will get you some." When she said this, she first shot a challenging glance at me, then kept staring at David. 2. Old classmate, it's been 10 years, hasn't it? I heard you got into Harvard back then. How'd you end up a server after a few years? Stephanie Miller gave the little girl shrimp, then looked back at me, her face full of mockery. Almost 30 and still a server? Aren't you embarrassed? At least be a supervisor. After she finished, the others burst into laughter. Everyone present, just like 10 years ago, was instinctively sucking up to Stephanie. Their logic was simple: whoever Stephanie mocked, they mocked, to show favor and gain something in return. Back in school, that might have been a pack of cigarettes Stephanie tossed their way. Now, maybe it was a decent job. It was for their livelihoods, nothing shameful, understandable. I smiled, set the wine down, and looked at Stephanie Miller. I just came to drop off a bottle of wine. Hope you enjoy your evening. With that, I planned to leave. I'd actually considered revealing my identity and putting this rich heiress in her place. But a seasoned businesswoman maintains her composure. Such childish and unintelligent actions were beneath me. As for David, I didn't look at him, because there was no point. He was married with a child, why bother dwelling on it, much less being unable to let go? Kate Johnson, Stephanie Miller didn't say you could leave. At that moment, Mike, who was near the door, stood up. He had always been Stephanie Miller's top lackey, 10 years ago and still now. Otherwise, he wouldn't be sitting by the door. His spot there was convenient for running errands for Stephanie Miller. Stephanie Miller also stood up, hands braced on the table. Kate Johnson, it's been 10 years since you've stumbled upon the class reunion. Why don't you stay and catch up? I still have work to do, I said with a faint smile. I need to keep working hard and try to become a supervisor before I'm 30. Then, a burst of laughter filled the room. 3. I didn't know what they were. Logan G. at. Was being a supervisor at Obsidian Lounge really that funny? After deducting the benefits package/healthcare and retirement plan, it came with a $20,000 monthly salary, a year-end bonus, and various allowances. Was that job laughable? I looked closely at them. Their clothes were indeed flashy, but just brands you could buy at any mall. The car keys on the table were mostly for mid to low-end models. Yet, their eyes were still filled with a sense of accomplishment. Where did this superiority come from? A woman named Brenda seemed to notice me looking at her car keys and said sarcastically, Kate Johnson, you don't even have a car, do you? My Ford might only be worth a few thousand, but at least it has 4 wheels. You're still riding a scooter/bike share, right? Ah, I use a bike share, I answered truthfully. Because my penthouse apartment/large apartment was very close to the club, I really did ride a bike share back and forth usually. Then, another burst of laughter. It seemed if I weren't there, they'd have no one to ridicule. After all, they were all Stephanie Miller's lackeys. None could laugh at another. Brenda said to David, David, it was really smart of you to dump her back then. Otherwise, you'd probably be crying on a bicycle right now. They laughed again. Especially Mike, who was standing opposite me, tilting his head back and laughing so hard I could see his back teeth. David's face was pale and strained. He couldn't look at me, his gaze darting away. What was he afraid of? Was he afraid I'd talk about that night in New York City? I wasn't that childish. Stephanie Miller tapped the table, and the laughter stopped. She pointed at me. Kate Johnson, you stay. I'll talk to Mr. Lockwood later and have him move you to a different position. Being a supervisor won't be a problem. Seeing I didn't speak, Stephanie Miller chuckled again. You might not know Mr. Lockwood. He's the club owner's executive assistant. It's normal for a little SE. River like you not to have the chance to meet him. Even if you did get a chance, what's Mr. Lockwood's status? He's someone even Mr. Miller, Stephanie's father, is polite to. Would he bother with a little server like you? Well, you never know. Our Kate Johnson is quite good looking. Maybe Mr. Lockwood will take her as a mistress. Brenda laughed after hearing this. So what? Even if she's kept, her status is basically like a dog, a pet at best. I really wanted to ask them, did I offend them that badly? Was it necessary? But I really didn't have time to argue with them, nor did I want them to know my real identity. Otherwise, people would definitely come over to fawn and ask for favors, like a leech, which would be annoying. You all have fun. I really need to go, or I'll lose my job, I said with a smile, and once again prepared to leave. Just then, Mike suddenly pushed me. Kate Johnson, are you refusing the chance I'm giving you? Stephanie is being generous, you should be grateful and accept it. Mike pointed at my nose. I looked at him calmly, then nodded and said, okay, I'll accept it. I won't leave. That's a good girl. Mike reached out and patted my face. I saw it clearly, it was his right hand. Stephanie Miller pointed to the oak barrel in the corner used as decoration. No chairs left. You sit there. Then, they continued to laugh. I looked at them, shaking my head and chuckling to myself. How utterly childish. Then, I walked over and sat down. David suddenly stood up. All right, stop messing around. Kate Johnson, you should leave now. Stephanie Miller looked at him with a cold face. What, are you feeling sorry for her? No, I just don't want to see her. David gritted his teeth, as if he hated me. It seemed he was truly afraid I would reveal that night 5 years ago and ruin his marriage with Stephanie Miller. You don't have to look at her, Stephanie Miller said with a cold smile, then sat down and looked at me. I quite enjoy watching Kate Johnson. It's like watching a circus act. I haven't seen a monkey in a long time. Mike chuckled. Kate Johnson, don't work here anymore. Go work at Stephanie Miller's company. As a cleaner or something. Stephanie Miller will be happy seeing you around, and might even toss you a few bananas. Then, they burst into laughter again. I said indifferently, forget about cleaning. When I have money, I'll buy Stephanie Miller's company. I want to be the CEO. They fell silent, then erupted in laughter. David didn't laugh. His eyes were red, though. He stared at me blankly, as if pleading with me to leave. Kate Johnson, Stephanie Miller said after she finished laughing, when you're really rich, I'll definitely sell you my company. She paused, then added, but by the time you're rich, our company will be even more valuable. I didn't respond. Mike, ever the good sidekick, piped up, Stephanie Miller, what do you mean? Does the company have another big project? Yes, she replied. I heard that the owner of Obsidian Lounge is a young talent our Riverwood leader went to great lengths to recruit. They say this person either doesn't make a move or, when they do, it's a project worth billions. Riverwood's business scene has been stagnant lately. The newest development zone is half empty. I heard this person came specifically for the development zone. My dad has some connections with our Riverwood leader. If we get a slice of that project, won't we make a killing again? Stephanie Miller boasted, flaunting her connections. The leader she referred to was actually Mayor Thompson. After saying all this, Stephanie Miller looked at me again. Kate Johnson, I still remember how you almost peed your pants when you saw my family's Bentley back then. I still have that Bentley. Can you drive now? If you can, come be my driver. You can drive that Bentley. I've only driven a custom-built luxury sedan, I said honestly. Then, they burst into laughter again. Or tea. Here really that many things to laugh at? I'd gone to comedy clubs in New York City and didn't hear jokes this frequent. Perhaps seeing that I wasn't talking or getting angry, they felt a sense of punching air, and were getting a little annoyed. Especially Stephanie Miller, who had kept me here specifically to toy with me, so she wouldn't let me off easily. She pointed at a bottle of wine on the table. Kate Johnson, ever had a bottle of rare scotch? It's pretty expensive. Today I'll give you a chance to try it. Down this bottle, and I'll let you leave. I don't drink alcohol, because drinking impairs my thinking. I don't drink, I shook my head. Besides, I didn't want to play their games anymore. Seeing they were relentless, I had no choice but to reveal my hand. Stephanie Miller, actually, I am the owner of Obsidian Lounge. The multi-billion-dollar project you were just talking about? I'm leading that too. I was perfectly serious when I said this. But they didn't believe me. The look on their faces was genuinely like they were watching a circus act. Then, another round of explosive laughter. Mike pointed at me. Kate Johnson, you sure know how to brag. Did you major in bragging at Harvard? I'm seriously going to die laughing. Why don't you just say you're the president? Brenda also laughed hysterically. I sighed and looked at them. Is there something wrong with your perception? Have you ever seen a Harvard graduate working as a server? They paused, but their eyes still held disdain. Stephanie Miller scoffed, does it matter if you're a server? What matters is, even if you graduated from Harvard, you're still poor in front of me. She stood up and pointed at the bottle of wine. You drink this bottle, or I'll use this bottle to bash your head in. Choose one. If she drinks it, can she leave? David suddenly stood up. He picked up the bottle of wine, took a deep breath, and said, I'll drink it for her, and then let her go. Why was he helping me? Was he AF? Afraid that if I stayed here and got pushed too far, I'd reveal that night? I looked at him, my heart feeling a turmoil I couldn't quiet. And at that moment, the door to the Crimson Suite opened. James Lockwood and Mayor Thompson walked in, one after the other. Mayor Thompson was often in the local news, so most people recognized him. And James Lockwood, as my executive assistant, didn't deliberately avoid public sight, so he was also somewhat known. Seeing them suddenly enter, Stephanie Miller immediately walked over obsequiously, bowing slightly. Mayor Thompson, Mr. Lockwood, what brings you here? Seeing this, the others also immediately stood up. Only I remained seated on the oak barrel. Seeing this, Stephanie Miller immediately snapped, Kate Johnson, get up. Can't you see who's here? 5. Everyone's eyes fell on me. Without rushing, I took out a piece of candy, slowly peeled off the wrapper, and said without lifting my head, they're all acquaintances. No need to be so polite. Then, I put the candy in my mouth. I think a lot, and eating candy, reason for a specific habit, is a habit when I'm using my brain. Auntie, is it sweet? The little girl, delicate as carved jade, had walked over to me at some point. She looked up, her bright, clear eyes blinking as she waited for me to look at her. I took out a piece of candy, offered it to her, and said, try it yourself. David, control your brat. Stephanie Miller suddenly snapped. What kind of place is this? What's a little brat doing running around? Brat? I was stunned. David's face was as pale as paper. He put down the bottle of wine and went to pick up the little girl. What was going on? Just a moment ago, Stephanie Miller said she was the little girl's mother. How did she become a brat? While my mind was reeling, I suddenly felt a sharp pain in my head. Mike had walked over and smashed a wine bottle on my head. He roared, you son of a bitch. Didn't you hear me tell you to stand up? He was desperate to get ahead, to make an impression on Stephanie Miller, and even more so on Mayor Thompson and James Lockwood. Crash! David grabbed the bottle of rare scotch next to him and smashed it over Mike's head. Touch her again, and I'll kill you. Mike covered his head, his hands and face covered in blood, his expression disbelieving. After a brief moment of shock, James Lockwood had rushed over and immediately checked my head. He relaxed only when he saw there were no serious wounds. He kept my head protected in his arms and said to Stephanie Miller with a cold face, you Millers, I only let you into Obsidian Lounge as a favor to your father. How could you not even control your dog and let him hit my boss on the head? The next moment, the entire room was stunned. As boisterously as they had been laughing just moments before, their faces were now equally pale. James Lockwood continued, listen up, all of you. I'm from the Lockwoods from New York. Kate Johnson is the woman I gave up being a CEO for, just to be her executive assistant. You touched her today, and I'll make sure you all suffer a terrible fate. The Lockwoods from New York? Mike and Brenda had no idea what the Lockwoods from New York were, but Stephanie Miller's face had turned as white as paper. She stammered, the Lockwood family? The one with generations in high office? Mayor Thompson also walked over to me, asking anxiously, Kate, do you need to go to the hospital first? We can discuss the project later, after you're okay. As for these people, I can handle them. Mayor Thompson, are you mistaken? Stephanie Miller asked in a trembling voice. This Kate Johnson is just a poor person, a nobody who almost peed herself 10 years ago because of my family's Bentley. Mayor Thompson glanced at her coldly. Your father said he wanted to participate in this construction project. I told him that the contractor would be chosen by Kate. This is the Kate I went to great lengths to bring back, Ms. Johnson, Kate John. Son. 6. At this moment, the Crimson Suite was silent, so quiet you could hear a pin drop. Even David looked at me with a mix of shock and a hint of grievance in his eyes. I sighed, then said, Mayor Thompson, let's catch up later. We'll finish here for today. All right, I'll wait for your call. Mayor Thompson nodded, then said to James Lockwood, Jamie, make sure you take good care of Kate tonight. Don't worry, James Lockwood nodded. Stephanie Miller and the others clearly didn't want to leave immediately, but the club's security guards had already rushed in and were escorting them out. Even David, holding Lily, was let out. He kept looking back at me, while James Lockwood suddenly pulled me into a hug. I'm still here, you know? Looking at other men? Aren't you afraid I'll get jealous? Then, I saw David leave, tears streaming down his face. I opened my mouth, but no words came out. Soon after, I returned to my room. The private doctor came to give me a quick checkup and left only after confirming I was fine. I sank onto the sofa. Not far away, James Lockwood poured a glass of wine and leaned against the piano, sipping from it. The wine stained his lips, giving them an alluring sheen. Truthfully, since I unexpectedly met David 5 years ago, I hadn't been with any men. James Lockwood wanted to try things with me, but then gave up, because ultimately, he was expected to have an arranged marriage. I did occasionally spend time with men, handsome ones with good physiques, but it was only ever just looking. I couldn't muster any interest. Did you know that guy? James Lockwood suddenly asked. I nodded, then briefly recounted what happened 10 years ago. I didn't mention the encounter 5 years ago. James Lockwood looked at me intently for a moment. I can tell that guy has feelings for you. The look in someone's eyes when they're in love can't be hidden. Huh? I was startled, then gave a wry smile. There's no point talking about that now. He has a child. He got a ready-made one, saved you the trouble of giving birth, James Lockwood said, rolling his eyes at me. Get out, I sighed. But he really seemed to want to protect me today. And after I was hit, he even hit Mike for me. I couldn't figure out what David was thinking. Have someone investigate, or ask him yourself, James Lockwood said, setting his wine glass on the piano. I'm leaving. Think about it yourself. I'm going to go chase some girls. Investigate? Forget it. I'd rather ask him myself. Having made up my mind, I lay down on the sofa and fell asleep. The next day, I woke up to James Lockwood calling my name. And Stephanie Miller and her group had also arrived. They came up to me and all dropped to their knees in unison. Stephanie Miller immediately started slapping herself. Ms. Johnson, I was wrong. Please, don't hold it against me. If you're not satisfied, please punish us. 7. I leaned back on the sofa, still a little groggy, having just woken up. James Lockwood used a damp towel to wipe my face. Anyone who didn't know better might think something was going on between us. After a moment to recover, I looked at Stephanie Miller and the others. You can get up. I won't hold last night against you. As a businesswoman, even if I wanted revenge, I wouldn't voice it. As the saying goes, still waters run deep. People who make a lot of noise all the time usually don't have much substance. Those who achieve great things never reveal their intentions to their adversaries. You're really not going to hold it against us? Stephanie Miller asked, incredulous. After all, as a vindictive rich kid who'd run roughshod over Riverwood, she was used to retaliation. I nodded. Saying this might upset you, but the truth is you're not worthy of being my enemy. You can go. Apart from Stephanie Miller, the others' expressions didn't change much. Stephanie Miller hesitated for a moment before asking, then, Ms. Johnson, our collaboration? I will discuss the call. Aberration with your father. This isn't something you can decide. I smiled. I'm a businesswoman. I won't do anything that harms both our interests because of a personal conflict. It's not profitable, so you can leave without worry. Stephanie Miller nodded, as if granted a great pardon, and led the others away. The moment the door closed, my expression changed. I looked at James Lockwood. Mike slapped me with his right hand. Understood, James Lockwood said. He took out his phone, dialed a number, and said, take care of his right hand. I added, Stephanie Miller's family should go bankrupt too. James Lockwood nodded. I'll handle this personally. With Mayor Thompson's cooperation, it won't be difficult. It wouldn't have been difficult anyway. When I do business, I always start by being kind to others. But if anyone dares to block my path, then I am the most ruthless. After making a few more work arrangements, I left the club and got into my custom-built luxury sedan. It really is a custom-built luxury sedan? Brenda muttered softly from a corner where she was hiding. Mike, his head wrapped in bandages, said, Sister, that's a state-approved luxury vehicle. It costs over $1 million off the lot, and his is definitely custom-modified. It wouldn't be less than $2 million. Plus, you can't just buy it with money. It requires special qualifications/status to buy. No way, a custom-built luxury sedan can't be that expensive. Brenda scoffed. Stephanie Miller's face was even paler. It really is that expensive. A wave of sadness washed over her. The people around her couldn't even recognize the value of this car, while James Lockwood was so fiercely protective of Kate Johnson. That was the gap. Stephanie Miller drove away and returned to her company to see her father. Mr. Miller, Stephanie's father, quickly asked, "Well, is it resolved?" Stephanie Miller breathed a sigh of relief. "Kate Johnson said she won't hold it against us. She said she's a businesswoman and won't jeopardize both sides' interests over personal grievances. She even said she'll talk to you about collaboration. She's truly a big shot, her perspective is on a whole different level." Mr. Miller, Stephanie's father, nodded at first, then stood up from behind his desk. He asked loudly, "You said Kate Johnson won't hold it against us and wants to talk to me?" "Yes," Stephanie Miller nodded. Mr. Miller, Stephanie's father, slammed the table. "I just looked into this Ms. Johnson. On the surface, she's kind to others, but everyone who crosses her ends up badly. A young master from New York City was taken down by a scheme she orchestrated over 2.5 years abroad. He lost his life." Stephanie Miller asked, somewhat incredulous, "Dad, aren't you thinking too much? Don't wander off for now. Stay at the company. I'll send people to protect you." "We'll talk more after I've handled this," Mr. Miller, Stephanie's father, said urgently. Just then, Stephanie Miller's phone rang. She answered it, and Brenda's crying voice came from the other end. "Stephanie Miller, hurry. Mike's been in an accident. We were hit by a car. Mike's right hand is completely crushed." What? Stephanie Miller snapped, her voice sharp. "Who did it? Do you know them?" "No, just a regular office worker," Brenda said. Stephanie Miller told her, "Take him to the hospital first." She hung up and saw Mr. Miller, Stephanie's father, was still there. Mr. Miller, Stephanie's father, asked, "What happened?" Stephanie Miller quickly explained. Mr. Miller, Stephanie's father, frowned and thought for a moment. "I'll send people to protect you. Go to the hospital and see him. Talk nicely. That Mike is easy to manipulate, he can be useful." Soon after, Stephanie Miller arrived at the hospital. Mike's surgery was over, and Stephanie Miller waited until dark for him to wake up. Stephanie Miller immediately asked him what happened. After a moment to compose himself, Mike stared with wide eyes and said, "I hit Kate Johnson's face with my right hand." "Hiss. That ruthless?" Stephanie Miller took a deep breath, then went to call her father. Not long after, she came back and spoke with Mike for quite a while. Meanwhile, I had finally found David. He was quite difficult to track down. It took me a whole day to learn that he was living on the outskirts of town. And when I went, Lily was home alone. She still remembered me and opened the door for me. The little girl was incredibly cute, calling me auntie in a sweet, childish voice and even washing fruit for me. But as I ate an apple, she swallowed, her mouth watering. It was clear that fruit was a luxury for her. I had my bodyguards buy fruit and snacks, then looked around the small apartment, which was only about 20 square meters. It was tiny but very clean, yet it still had a fishy, foul smell. That was because the neighbors were all in a rundown neighborhood. I looked into David's bedroom. There was only a very small bed. I also saw there was a small, antique locket on the bedside table. I picked up the locket, but Lily immediately said, "Auntie, you can't touch Daddy's things." Daddy said, "Besides Lily, that's his most precious thing." His most precious thing? It was something I had given David 10 years ago, a memento left to me by my mother. It wasn't valuable, but he had kept it all this time. And he had been handling it constantly, using white gloves, used for handling the locket carefully, so as not to damage the wood. The white gloves were right there on the bedside table. My heart ached. Looking at Lily again, I seemed to finally understand the truth. Just then, David came back. He ran in. When he saw me, his eyes turned red, and tears streamed down uncontrollably. He picked up Lily and backed away. "What are you doing here?" David asked, biting his lip. I took a deep breath and stood up, my voice trembling as I asked, "Lily is." "It's none of your business," David practically shouted. Saying him like this only confirmed what I suspected. "Do you think you can hide it from me?" I countered. David seemed to lose all his strength. Holding Lily, he sank to the ground and cried, "She's my brother's. My brother and his wife died in an accident. Why didn't you say it? You've been living in this kind of environment with the child for 5 years?" I was angry, and also regretful. David's voice trembled. After that time 5 years ago, I looked for you, but I saw you bringing different men home. Then, I was speechless, but then my face turned cold. You humiliated me 10 years ago and chose Stephanie Miller. Do you think I shouldn't find other men? 10 years, 10 years. David started crying, then laughed through his tears. He looked up at me, his eyes full of sadness. Kate Johnson, you might never have known, but the first time you helped me with a problem, I secretly fell for you. But I didn't dare confess. Later, I couldn't be with you because Stephanie Miller was pursuing me. If I had said yes to you, she would definitely have made trouble for you. He cried as he laughed. Later, as graduation approached, you and I planned to go to Harvard. But Stephanie Miller found me and said she wouldn't force me to be with her, but I had to reject you. Otherwise, she'd lose face. She said if she lost face, she would make something happen to you before the SATs. I had no choice but to agree. Hearing this, I was already in tears. Even though I had guessed the general idea just moments ago, I still couldn't stop crying. He continued, Stephanie Miller said that even after college entrance exams, I couldn't be with you, not for the rest of my life. Otherwise, she would find a way to destroy you. Her family was so rich, I was afraid. He wiped away his tears. Later, because of this, my grades were affected. Although I still got into a university in New York City, I went to secretly see you. But I didn't dare meet you. I was afraid I wouldn't be able to hold back, and that would hurt you. David finally looked at Lily. If I hadn't seen you with so many men, I would have thrown caution to the wind for Lily and come to explain everything to you. I didn't know what to say. But David spoke again. Kate Johnson, I stayed pure for you for 5 years. After that unexpected meeting, I stayed pure for you for another 5 years. But you already have James Lockwood by your side. James Lockwood is a good friend of mine, and he's going home for an arranged marriage, I quickly explained. David, I admit I was wrong about those men, but I never touched them. Give me a chance to make it up to you both. You're not wrong, David said with a bitter smile. Ultimately, from your perspective, you were the victim who was dumped. It wouldn't be normal for you not to find men for my sake. He quickly added, yesterday's class reunion, I didn't really want to attend, but Lily is starting kindergarten soon, and I wanted to find a better environment for her, so I thought I'd reconnect with classmates and find a new job. Then Stephanie Miller said she was Lily's mother. She said that on purpose. I have nothing to do with her. But I didn't dare say anything at the time. She glared at me. I was afraid that if I explained, she would retaliate against you. I understand, I sighed, walked over, and helped the father and daughter up. Will you give me a chance? I tentatively hugged David. David didn't say anything, but he didn't resist either. Lily was a little dizzy, not quite understanding what was happening. Just then, the bodyguards who went to buy snacks and fruit returned, and Lily went to eat. David and I talked for a long time. Only then did I learn how difficult his workplace, supervisors and clients made unwanted advances. He had no choice but to help his parents with their food stand/small diner. David's brother and sister-in-law would also help him, but they were poor themselves and couldn't offer much. I told him that from now on, he wouldn't have to worry about money anymore, because the one thing I wasn't short of now was money. He said he genuinely didn't care about money because he was a person with very low material desires, but Lily was different. That night, I took the father and daughter back to my penthouse apartment. The next day, I had Mayor Thompson give me the green light. I first went and got our marriage license with David, and then made arrangements for Lily's legal status/residency with us. I asked Lily to call me Mommy. She was a little scared, but she sweetly called me Mommy. A few days later, James Lockwood suddenly called me and asked me to go to the development zone. David and I went together. Lily stayed home playing with bodyguards watching her. When we arrived at the development zone, we walked into a factory building. Then I saw many familiar faces, Stephanie Miller and Mike, Brenda, and a few other classmates. However, they were in a terrible state, all hung up. Not far away was a shredder, roaring loudly. And James Lockwood was sitting on a chair, a playful smile on his face. David was terrified by this scene and quickly grabbed my hand. I frowned and asked, Jamie, what's going on? This wasn't James Lockwood's style. If he wanted to deal with someone, he wouldn't use brute force directly. He was the one who taught me how to strategize and eliminate someone effectively. James Lockwood couldn't help but laugh. I bribed someone close to Mr. Miller, Stephanie's father, and found out these people were plotting against you. You know I'm good at planning, but if the other side makes the first move, I'll switch to a more exciting approach, James Lockwood added. I looked closely and indeed saw Mr. Miller, Stephanie's father, as well. Seeing me, Stephanie Miller quickly shouted, "Kate Johnson, we were classmates. Give me a chance. I don't want to die." When you were plotting against me, did you consider giving me a chance? I countered. Stephanie Miller roared, "Kate Johnson, don't think I don't know your methods. You once orchestrated a 2.5-year scheme to eliminate a young master from New York City. Even if I didn't harm you, you would still harm me." "You're right," I nodded. "Sooner or later, you're going to die. Especially knowing you threatened David 10 years ago. I want you to die a more gruesome death." With that, I took David and left. I told James Lockwood, "Leave no trace." "A big fire can melt away all traces," James Lockwood said. Not long after, my project officially launched. But I never micromanaged. I was used to being a hands-off manager. I just needed to set the broad framework, and James Lockwood would handle the rest. Every day, I spent time with David and Lily, making up for the 10 years we'd missed. Later, we held a wedding ceremony, but we didn't make a big fuss. I also made excellent arrangements for David's parents and David's brother and sister-in-law. After the project got on track, James Lockwood also had to return to New York City for his arranged marriage. After that, the project no longer required my constant attention, so I took David and Lily and together we set out to see the country.
Here Mrs. Thompson would throw $1 million at me to make me leave her daughter. I had already planned it out in my head. I probably wouldn't have agreed to $1 million. After I saw Mrs. Thompson out, Victoria Thompson arrived shortly after. "What did my mom say to you?" She looked a little nervous. "Nothing much." "That's good. I was afraid you'd leave again like last time." "I'm not leaving. I'm staying to be with you." While discussing the marriage arrangements, Victoria Thompson specifically brought my family from hometown. Except for the 2 brothers who were working, the rest all came. Seeing them, I felt like a stranger. After all, I was sent away at a young age, and there wasn't much family affection. Victoria Thompson also wanted my family to witness my wedding, and I was grateful to her for that. When my father and my mother came, I arranged a hotel for them, but they insisted on staying at the Song Mansion. Victoria Thompson complied with everything. "Oh my, look, it just goes to show our Leo is capable. You'll be living in a big house like this from now on." They showed no shame about selling me back then. Instead, they were enjoying the benefits of the Song residence. It was as if selling me was for my own good, putting me in a place of fortune. "Leo, we also came this time because we have something to discuss. Look, some of your brothers don't have very good jobs. Why don't you see about arranging something for them? After all, you'll be the head of the Song family/corporation in the future." "Yes, Leo. Our house is also cramped. There's not enough space for the grandchildren at home. Your sisters who married poorly, still living at home. I heard you earned a lot. Help out with expenses, Leo?" In my father's and my mother's eyes, there wasn't any sympathy for me, only full of calculation/selfish motives. "You sold me into the Song residence back then. Have you lost your memory? How can you make so many demands of me? This is the Song residence. Do you think this is a marketplace? Demanding this and that. All these years, if they had even sent me a letter to ask how I was, I wouldn't be this angry." "Hey, you can't talk like that, Leo. It was fate that you and Miss Song met, otherwise, how could we become related to establish ties with the Song family? You owe it to your father for paid the debt, otherwise, you wouldn't have gotten in, and you'd probably be like your brothers marrying someone ordinary/less successful. So I should be grateful to you?" for selling me at such a young age. Victoria Thompson walked over and blocked me. All these years, I had actually longed for family affection, and she understood that about me. But my father and my mother weren't worth longing for at all. Uncle and Auntie, please stay here comfortably during this time. If you need anything, just tell the staff members. Okay, okay, good, good. Thank you, daughter-in-law. They are your parents after all. Let bygones be bygones. Only by letting go of this issue can you live happily. I was unfortunate, sold off repeatedly at a young age. My heart felt bleak inside. But I was also fortunate that I met Victoria Thompson. Victoria healed my unhappy childhood. After marrying Victoria Thompson, I always patiently took care of her. I never let her do any strenuous tasks, nor did I ever said a harsh word to her. Several $100s. Not to mention driving a BMW car and carrying a bag worth $10,000 or $20,000. I got in the car first. Immediately after, I saw Brandon running out through the rearview mirror of the BMW car and hitting Hannah. You bitch. You caused my house to be seized. Where am I going to live in the future? Brandon was furious. Hannah had bought his high-end condo behind my back with our money. Naturally, I wouldn't let go of anything I could recover. It's just that all the money Hannah gave Brandon was lost by this kid in gambling. He owed millions of dollars in debt. I didn't expect to be able to recover it. Was this the life Hannah wanted? I was about to step on the gas and leave. Sophia suddenly appeared in front of me. She was still wearing the Chanel dress I had bought for her before, but it was dirty. She looked at me with pleading eyes. Dad, can you take me home? I won't hate you anymore in the future. I don't have anything to wear, nothing to eat. I was wrong. Dad, you used to love me the most. I hate Mom. She's the one who ruined me. Dad, when I turn adult and have a birthday in the future, can you give me a car like this too? I got out of the car and squatted in front of Sophia. My heart was very calm. I can support you to study until you graduate from college. Besides that, I'll give you $2,000 a month for living expenses, not a penny less. Go find your mom. I'm already scared. If I do it again, I'll go crazy. Sophia pursed her lips, stubbornly looking at me, refusing to leave the front of the car. Her eyes were filled with confusion. I hate Mom. I hate Brandon. Dad is the best to me. Dad, please don't be angry. I'll listen to you from now on. I miss my big bed. I live outside, and I won't be able to sleep. Until now, Sophia's words still showed that she couldn't bear the previous material life. Even if she sincerely showed me a trace of emotion, maybe my firm heart would soften. I pulled Sop Hia away and stepped on the gas, and left. It wasn't that I was too heartless. Once bitten by a snake, 10 years afraid of the well rope. I had lost confidence in marriage and in everyone around me. Maybe I would live my life in the way I wanted in the future, but I would never get married or have children again. In the following days, Hannah would bring Sophia to wait for me at the office gate every day. The newly hired security guards strictly followed my orders and didn't let them step into the office. No matter how they begged or how pitiful they were, I didn't give them a penny again. 3 months later, Hannah disappeared with Sophia. The last time I saw her was in a business club. I was discussing business with a friend at the time. When the club hostess was called in, I saw Hannah at first glance. She no longer had the pampered and superior air she used to have. All that was left in her eyes was exhaustion. Our eyes met. Hannah lowered her head in fear. My friends all quieted down. They also recognized Hannah and looked at me with complicated expressions. I waved to Hannah and took out a few $1,000s from my briefcase and put it on the table. Do you want it? But it's not free. If you come over and drink this bottle of whiskey, you can take it. Hannah didn't hesitate at all. She walked over and firmly grasped the few $1,000s and drank the bottle of whiskey in one breath. At this time, she'd probably understood that even a few $1,000s couldn't be obtained by sitting at home, applying face masks, eating diet salad, and asking for it. I'm sorry. Hannah looked at me, vicissitudes of life. She looked several years older. Are you still with that Brandon? I asked casually. Hannah nodded. He threatened me with videos and photos, asking me to work as a hostess in the club to earn money to pay off his debts. I laughed out loud. Didn't that grandson say he wanted to make money to support you? In this world, how could there be so many idiots? Hannah bit her lip hard. Tears were streaming down her face. Through her mentioning the things that had happened in the past few months, I learned that her parents' house had also been sold under Brandon's coercion and inducement. All the money was also taken by Brandon to pay off his debts. I took out a few $1,000s again in front of Hannah and put it on the table, asking those women who wanted it to dance for me. Hannah, do you see that? I can make these women please me and curry favor with me with just a few $1,000s. That night, I scattered tens of thousands of dollars in the club. I was carefree and carefree. I didn't have to worry about coming home late, not having time to spend with my wife and daughter. I didn't have to worry about not earning money to support them. I also didn't have to worry about raising a family of wolves in sheep's clothing. 14 Ever since Hannah and Brandon had a falling out, Brandon would beat and scold Hannah and Sophia every night. Sometimes he wouldn't even give them food. According to Hannah, Brandon hadn't given up yet. He kept telling them to find a way to ask me for money. When I heard that Brandon had taken all the $2,000 of living expenses that I gave Sophia every month for himself, I finally got a little angry. The next night, I called a few friends from society and blocked Brandon on the road he had to take after work, using a burlap sack to cover his head and teach him a hard lesson. Under their rental house, Brandon was beaten until his head was bleeding. I had so many ways to make his life worse than death to deal with this kind of little scoundrel. In today's society, money can make the devil push the millstone, but there is no need to play too hard. This was the life Hannah chose. Only when they faced the bloody society would they know that the place they lived in the beginning was simply paradise. The more remorse they felt, the more my angry mood could be calmed down a little. A few days later, I received a strange call. Brandon's voice came from the phone. Sean, I don't believe you have any feelings for Hannah and Sophia. I've been forced to a dead end. If you want them to live, give me $5 million in cash. At worst, I'll die with them. I asked Brandon with a sneer on the phone. Didn't you say you loved Hannah and wanted to make money to support them? Brandon laughed out loud. Sean, do you think I'm as stupid as you? If it wasn't because I valued Hannah's generosity and willingness to spend money for me, only an idiot would like this kind of old woman in her 30s who's loose and has no charm at all. Oh, and the way she flatters me in front of me, you probably haven't seen it in the 10 years you've been married to her. It's pretty interesting. I endured the bursts of sadness in my heart. In fact, in my heart, I already believed what Brandon said. Hannah could do it. I hung up the phone and called the police without hesitation. The current Hannah was not as important as a meeting or a drink with friends. You have to finish the road you choose, crying and kneeling. Just like I chose in the beginning, freedom and romance are built on money. Without money, there is only an endless vegetable market, endless cheap cosmetics, and endless firewood, rice, oil, and salt. It was because I understood this truth that I desperately earned money after I married Hannah. They were in freedom and love, but they still rushed to the abyss. Brandon underestimated my determination. He thought I would be foolish enough to take $5 million to find him and then wait for him to spend it all, the second $5 million, the third $5 million. Once something started, it would cycle forever. Maybe Brandon didn't expect that he would eventually not wait for the $5 million I brought, but the fully armed police. At this moment, Hannah also saw my decision. If she still had a little wisdom, she should understand that I would never look back. 15 That and I. GHT, Brandon surrendered voluntarily as soon as he saw the police. I had my assistant go to the scene and witness the whole process. Still, that sentence, Brandon was just a little scoundrel. He might have some ability to pick up girls and cheat money, but if he wanted to be tough, even if he had 2 more guts, he wouldn't be that kind of person. Brandon was sentenced to 7 years for kidnapping and extortion. To some extent, I also did a good thing, rescuing Hannah and Sophia from this scoundrel's hands. Half a year later, Hannah's family lived in poverty. The whole family was squeezed into a cheap rental house. Her parents, who had already resigned, one went to work as a sanitation worker, having to get up at 5 or 6 o'clock every day, and the other went to the factory gate to work as a security guard. The next time I saw Hannah was half a year later. I met Hannah, who was selling snacks on the street, on the way to the office for a meeting. She had no jewelry or designer clothes on her body. Her face was full of wrinkles, and there was no trace of her wealthy appearance. Seeing me stop the car and lower the window, Hannah looked at me and forced a smile. "How's Sophia doing?" I asked casually. Hannah nodded. "She's at school. Same old, same old." A moment of silence passed. Hannah burst into tears. "Sean, I regret it," she sobbed. "Now I understand how incredibly kind you were to us. I didn't know how good I had it. It turns out making money is so hard." She crouched on the ground, weeping uncontrollably. I gave a faint smile. I had let go of everything. "Hannah, what's missed is missed. There aren't that many chances for regrets in this world." The following year, Hannah got married. After all, she wasn't bad looking. She found a man, also divorced, and quite a few years older than her. I sold my office, too, and with the money, I decided to see the world. A person has to live for themselves sometimes. Eventually, in the Colorado mountains, I met a girl. Her eyes were pure, and she had 2 dimples when she smiled. We traveled together. After a year of silence in my heart, I felt a spark with this girl. I lied and told her I was just a small employee at an office, making $3,000 or $4,000 a month. The girl winked at me and said with a smile, "Quit your job when we get back. I'll take care of you." Just like I had said to Hannah once. It turns out you have to find someone worthy of your efforts. But the truth was too cruel. But Hannah was surprised to find that she had anger burning in her heart when she faced her mother's crying. She didn't want to forgive her mother, but she had no choice but to take care of her. So she agreed to the divorce. Could she keep it a secret from Xander forever, even if she put herself in his shoes? Hannah regretted it. She had made a terrible mistake, letting go of the person who loved her most, even without blood ties. Passing colleague and asked, "Do you want this tie for $50? The colleague smiled and said, "This brand is not cheap. Are you selling it to me?" I nodded. Then the colleague and I exchanged money for the tie. Howard Thompson's face turned pale as he watched the scene. How could you?" I chuckled and said, "Howard Thompson, isn't this how you treated me for the past 7 years? Do you think we can still get to the future?" Howard Thompson looked at me deeply, as if nailed to the spot. The next day, I heard from the restaurant where he worked that he had returned to the country. Not long after, news broke in the country that he was divorced. However, he never had any scandals again and became a diamond bachelor that everyone in the industry wanted to curry favor with. And my life and his gradually became parallel lines that would never intersect. The end. A new processing plant. During this period, David Miller was always with me, encouraging me. David Miller and I got married. He has a 15-year-old daughter who is very cute and likes me very much. Amid the hustle and bustle, my life became complete, with a husband, a child, and a career. Following the tide of reform and opening up, our family of 3 strode forward, leaving behind a trail of laughter and joy.